I'm Dave Gage of harmonicalessons.com, and today is a particularly interesting and fun and useful class. Today is playing critiques, where our live members will that show up that care to will play a little bit, and I will let them know what I think is working great and what maybe could use a little bit of improvement. So that will be today's class. All right, we've got Tony here who is going to play a little bit of something for us. Tony, what is it you're going to do for us today? By the way, let me remind you before you even say, you're welcome to play a song or a portion of the song, but keep in mind, we get a little bit of that when we do our open mic nights. But really, probably more importantly, if you have me check some of your technical stuff, anything from tongue blocking to quality of breathing and single notes, bending, riffs, whatever it happens to be. So anyway, go ahead, you pick something, and we'll take a listen. What do you want to do?
Let's start with see if I can do single notes.
Okay. Excellent. You got your C diatonic. How about hold 4, blow, and draw?
That was 4 draw and 4 blow.
Good. Yeah, do it about 10, 20 times. Just do it till I stop you. Good. Okay. It sounds pretty good, and it's really good enough and acceptable. If you want to make it better, here's what you would need to do. You would need to start trying to practice getting the harmonica a little bit further into your mouth. That's kind of what it comes down to. It's actually, you're not doing as much sucking and blowing with the front of your mouth and your lips as most people do. But you're still doing a little bit of it. I can hear it's a little bit thin. Now, let me see if I can sort of give you the idea. Here's what you're doing. Now, here's what we'd like it to be. Now, with the internet and the recording we have, I mean, sometimes it's, without being in a room with somebody, sometimes it's hard to go, oh, wow, yeah, what a clear difference between those two. But where I'm sitting, there is a clear difference between those two. And here's another thing. Fred, I don't know if you were there or if you saw it, but it was a week or two ago, we did a class on advanced breathing. And some of the tips in that class would probably help you also. The other thing, I intuit. Again, it's much easier for me to be if I'm in the same room with you. But I've been doing this long enough, I can kind of, even with, over the internet, I can kind of tell what's going on. It sounds a little bit to me like you're pushing the air into the harmonica instead of through the harmonica. Remember that in that class we covered? We talked about put the air into the harmonica, not into the harmonica. Don't blow it into the harmonica. Try to push the air through the harmonica out the back. That's for a blow note. For a draw note, you got to be very, very careful. And again, getting it further into your mouth will mostly solve this problem. But if you get the harmonica further into your mouth, it makes it harder to suck with your lips. But I do get the sense that you're still pushing and pulling the air a little bit with your lips and the front of your mouth, which almost everybody does that plays harmonica for the first year to 10 years. Unless somebody like me kind of beats on and says, oh, stop doing that, stop doing that. So it's very, very difficult for people to fix those kinds of things by themselves, or even be aware they exist. But I would say your angle of airflow, we've talked about that, to change the pitch, for bending. And a lot of people do it, they can't turn it off. They always have a little bit of angle, which puts everything they have a little bit out of tune and makes everything a little thin. I didn't get the sense that you're doing much of that. And that, again, is a very, very good thing because that is so hard for people to fix. But if you can, try to get the harmonica a teeny bit further in your mouth. And I do mean teeny bit or a tiny bit, either one you pick. We don't want to, you don't want to try and get it a half inch further in your mouth or a quarter inch or even an eighth of an inch. At most, a 16th of an inch, maybe a quarter inch if you can pull it off. But it's something, Tony, and all of you out there that have this issue, is that every couple months when you get single notes, every couple months, you want to try and go back and get the harmonica further into your mouth. And that means lowering the jaw more, opening it up, doing more of the vertical slot, like that. And then you can, if you're truly blocking with the corners of your mouth, then you can get it further into your mouth. And a lot of these issues and problems I'm talking about, they sort of instantly get fixed by getting the harmonica further in your mouth. Not 100%, but essentially that's what it is. So, Tony, if you or anyone watching this would like more information on that breathing thing, again, we have breathing lesson 1 and breathing lesson 2. And lesson 2, where I was talking about some of these more advanced aspects of breathing, which I think apply to where you're at, Tony. Because all in all, pretty clean, pretty nice. Your intonation is pretty good. It's just a little bit thin sounding. So that's my story on that. If you don't mind, hopefully by now you know a major scale or even a very, very simple song like Marietta Little Lamb, Oh Susanna. And if you could just slowly play me the first 5 or 10 notes, just go up and down the scale if you have it memorized. And by the way, all of you out there that are advanced beginners to intermediates to advanced players, I'd appreciate, and this will be helpful for you in the long run, that you learn the C major scale, or I should say the first position major scale on your diatonic. Because when I'm trying to help you, sometimes I just need you to have a set of notes that you know so well that they're not getting in the way of your thinking and playing when we're trying to focus on single notes or bending or something like that. So it really, really helps to have a couple things memorized and down cold. And the major scale is probably the first thing. And then a simple first position song that you've played hundreds of times. Not 10, not 15, memorized and played a couple hundred times. And again, in the long run, that's very, very helpful for me helping you, because then I know you're not thinking about which notes to play. You're concentrating on the technique or the concept at hand. So, Tony, can you play the, speaking of that, can you play the C major scale? Good. Take your time with it.
Well,
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. Okay, stop. No, that's okay. That's okay. Don't worry about it. You can fix that later. You gave me enough to go on. That was all I needed. But as I said, as you just the last 5-minute explanation, almost a lecture really. Do get it down, Tony. Get it down real well, because from time to time in these in a private lesson, a Skype private 101 lesson, or me in person, or even over the internet here, I need you to play stuff that you know cold, right? The fact that you, and you have to, as Tony probably encounters, like, oh yeah, I know that scale. But when you're in a situation where there's a little bit of a pressure on you, and if you're doing it maybe a little slower or faster or changing something, that's when you're going to lose it. So when you practice your scales and your songs, this relates to what we were just talking about, but this is also a different subject altogether too. Make sure when you practice your songs, scales, riffs, any kind of improv stuff, try it at different volumes. Mostly you want to keep it loud by getting the harmonica further in your mouth and getting more airflow. Try it at different volumes, and also try it at what was I going to say? Oh, different tempos, different speeds. So if you can play it, I think that maybe, Tony, because I've seen this a zillion times before, this is my first time doing this, and sometimes it's hard to believe, but I get the feeling that you stumbled a little bit because you were thinking about the single notes and also, yeah, more of a brain thing and less a mouth thing. But also that you might have slowed it down slower than you usually practice it. So very important. And Tony, I know, plays a lot of songs. So Tony, I do encourage you to take every melody you know and play it at wildly different tempos, very slow, fast, different variations of medium. And if you have of medium tempo, and if you have a drum machine type device or metronome, things that have drum patterns are usually the best because it's more like real music, but even something that clicks is okay as long as it's loud enough that when you play, you don't drown out the sound. That's why I'm not a big fan of metronomes, is because it's really easy if you're playing harmonica to drown it out. So, okay, now it's like, okay, Dave, are you ever going to tell me what you thought about that? Yes. Here's what I'm thinking. One of the big things I was looking for, Tony, was whether you're going to be moving the harmonica or moving your head. And you did move the harmonica fairly well. And I'm guessing that you have put some conscious thought and practice into moving your head and not the harmonica. Is that truth? Okay. Yeah, because it is a big, big deal. I see so many people, they're great on 4, then they go to 5, but they're twisting their head to the side a little bit, and what happens is by the time they get up there, it's not that their mouth is doing anything wrong, it's that they're not moving the harmonica. So wherever the hole is, you want your mouth to be right on top of it. You don't want to be coming at an angle or at the side. So that was pretty good, and Tony, I think that's fine. Let's take a listen to Fred. Fred, while I'm finishing my speech here, if you want to do something, if you want me to take a listen, go ahead and say yes, and specifically what you want to do would be fine. And by the way, Tony, good lesson for everyone out there that does these live classes with us. I appreciate the fact that you turned off your mic, you muted your mic. That actually helps quite a bit at this end. Okay, we've got Fred here, and he's ready to get critiqued. Fred, what would you like me to listen to today?
I'm going to, in my exercise routine, I mix single notes with harmonies. Plus, I have experimented with a large harmony and blocking in the middle.
Mm-hmm. Oh, which is what we call an octave, Fred. If you're talking about this, you're talking about that sound, that's an octave. That's what that's called. So, yeah, very common, very useful tongue blocking technique. So go ahead, just play for me literally about 10-15 seconds. That's all I need, Fred, to get an idea where you're at. So whenever you're ready, go ahead.
Okay.
All right. Okay, very good. That actually was pretty nice, Fred. It sounded to me like you weren't really even so much working in tongue blocking stuff, but just sort of playing chords down at the low end, which is great. That sounds pretty good. Can you do that same thing for me and slow it down to maybe quarter speed? This will be hard if you've never done it. This is going to be difficult, but try to slow it down to slow motion and do the same length, and let me see what you got.
actually did some tongue switching for
Uh-huh.
harmony.
Very cool. Okay, Fred, I would say, generally speaking, the main thing to clean up, overall it sounds good. The main thing to clean up would be clean up your single notes, especially when you tongue block, because tongue blocking with the way you're doing it, where you're playing kind of a rhythm and melody at the same time, it's much more powerful if it sounds like the melody is separate from the rhythm. That is, it almost sounds like two harmonica players playing together. And what's happening is sometimes your melodies and the rhythm part you put in, it gets sloppy right when you do that. So what we want is where when the rhythm comes in, the single note is still a clean single note. So watch. See how my single note is always really, really strong, whether I do that rhythm stuff or not. So I would just take a step back, and you'll be able to figure it out. And if you go back and you listen to this video, if you record yourself there at home and listen back, listen to where it sounds. Again, what you want is that clean definition between single notes and the chords to give the illusion that there's two different players playing it simultaneously. So the effect, again, if it gets sloppy when you lift your tongue because you lose the single note, it loses the power of the effect you're trying to create. But other than that, it sounds pretty good. Anything else? Did you want me to just hear a single note or a bent note, anything like that, Fred?
I'm not really sure if I'm bending.
You are not.
Is that bending?
No, it's not. And Fred, for you that are new to bend, I know you've been playing harmonica a long time, but if you're new to bending, it's going to be difficult. And whether you've been playing a day and a half or a year and a half or, numerous decades, bending is difficult for everyone. Here, Fred, is the overwhelming easy for me to say, overwhelming note. Here's the thing you need to look at, okay? Can't find the word today. What you need to do is make sure you clearly understand what a bent note sounds like. And the best way to do that is you can go back to these videos where we've covered bending and listen to me play it like, let's say, a 4-draw or a 2-draw or a 1-draw on a C diatonic, and just listen to that part over and over and over again until you can go wow, wow. You have to get it in your head. The biggest problem people have in learning to bend is when they ask the question, I'm not even sure if I'm bending, that's not a good sign. You have to be able to hear when you get it or not. It's no shame in not being able to get bending right away. It is a little difficult, but the problem is that if you are not hearing what it should sound like, if you don't have the sound in your head, you're going to waste a lot of time doing stuff like this. All I'm doing is playing 4-draw and then expanding my mouth to get 5. That's not a bend. Here's a bend on 4-draw. Notice it becomes a completely different note. So here's the other thing, Fred, is pick whichever one you feel most comfortable with, you have the most confidence with, or seems to actually bend a bit. For most people, this will be 1-draw or 4-draw, but but occasionally it's 2 or 3 draw. Don't do anything. Remember, blow notes don't bend, so leave those out of it. Forget 5, it doesn't really bend. Forget 6, too high. But 1, 2, 3, or 4, pick one where you get the best amount of bending. So here, let's just try this real quick, Fred. And by the way, we have a bending workshop next week where we will do this more specifically. But here's my one draw. Fred, I want you to do your best. Don't play yet. Don't play yet. Let me just play it a few more times. I want you to do your best to almost visualize, hear this sound, see this sound in your head, and let's see how close you can get. Listen. Now, try that sound. One draw bend. Good. Little bit. There. Okay. Fred, I want you until maybe the next week. Next week we have a class devoted specifically to bending. Why don't you just work on one draw? Okay. You also got to manipulate your breathing a little bit. What I recommend you do, we talked about that very complex thing with using the nose as a valve. Forget that for now. All I want you to do is before you start doing a lot of draw notes, like bending one draw, put the harmonica in your mouth, exhale through your nose as much as you can. Get as much air out. So it's this. Exhale through your nose, then start bending. Because you're kind of filling up with air, which everybody does. So basically, exhale before you start doing it. Okay? I think that's good for one day. Tony, if you're ready to go, type something in if you want to do one more thing. I think we'll have time for that. And, okay, Fred, excellent. I will turn off your stuff now, and we'll take a look at Tony. All right, Tony is going to play just a little bit of a song. We're going to take a look at that and see what we can do to maybe better it up a bit. If I am not mistaken, he's going to play a little bit of melodies played before. It's called Shady Grove. And if I remember correctly, he tends to play it on his key of C diatonic in 3rd position in the key of D minor. And he's going, yes, that's what I do. That's what I'm doing now. So, all right. Go ahead and do it for us, Tony. Okay, good single notes. And this is I said before about having a song you can play that you know real well. Tony, just use this one. It's fine, for this. I did see you not move the harmonica as much as when you're doing the scale. Maybe you've probably got some muscle memory built into playing that song. And so you kind of play it the way your body's used to playing it. So you might go back and just get in front of a mirror and watch yourself. Volume was pretty good. You have a tendency, as we all do, to rush. I know I've said this before, but you tend to rush. You tend to play it too fast. Playing any song faster does not make it better. You know what it does? It makes it faster. So you're tending to rush in some areas and not in others. So I would, as I mentioned earlier, I would just I don't know the melody, sorry. Dun dun, but just nice and even and slow, and you hear me beating on my leg. Get a strong rhythm device. Again, I like drum patterns, especially if you've got a keyboard, or you can run it through some speakers so it's loud. And you will feel instantly when you start to lose the groove. And Tony, we all have to do this. And the people that don't do it have crappy timing. It's what it comes down to. It's just something you have to do. All musicians have to do it at all levels. So I'd say that's overall, it gets better every time I hear you do it. Whether we're doing a open mic night or doing this kind of thing, but it still comes down to breathing was better, single notes were pretty good, move the harmonica more, but mostly don't rush. That's the big thing. Slow it down. Try it at different tempos. And once you're comfortable with that, try it with a metronome or a metronome type device and see what you come up with. So I think that's good. So go ahead, Tony, and mute your mic, and I'll just sign off right here. So that's what today's class comprised. Each guy did two different things. We did some critiques, and so we're good. Those of you watching this video, I hope you will try and join us. If you find that the schedule of classes is not to your liking, i.e. you're at work or sleeping or whatever it is, you can always email us. Go to the members area, go to the contact page, and say, you know what would be good is my time in Russia or my time or whatever, or better yet, if you can convert it into Pacific time for me, where I'm at, that would be great. But anyway, as always, have fun, keep playing, and I will see y'all next time. Thanks.